This top 30 might have a different order for characters than what you guys may have seen in my top 10 video due to the fact that this list is going to be my own personal list on what I think the top 30 strongest should be and not based on any narrative trajectories for what Oda is implying. It also takes into account some of the points that you guys brought up concerning my previous video that I think are valid and might have changed my mind a little bit. Just want to say at the start of the video, thank you guys again for 2K. We're already getting close to 2.1 and the success that I've been having with the past videos is blowing my mind. I can't continue to thank you all enough for supporting the channel and the content, but without further ado, this is going to be my top 30 of all time. Starting with the honorable mentions this time around, I have Beckman, Sabo, Oden, Law, and Gabon. These are characters who I think could have been at number 30, but I just don't see them edging out who is currently at top 30. I think the statement of Beckman being the moon to Shanks' sun is widely overstated as far as the strength is concerned because I do not think Beckman is as strong as Shanks or anywhere near to it. The whole idea that certain right hands are relative to their captains is overblown significantly due to the pre-time skip because of Luffy and Zoro and Kid and Killer. Luffy currently would beat Zoro possibly without even needing to go Gear 4 in all honesty. Luffy and Zoro are not close anymore, and even by the end of the story I don't think Luffy would need to use Gear 5 to beat Zoro comfortably in a fight. I don't think Rayleigh is pushing Roger to anything beyond a high diff, and I don't see Beckman doing the same with Shanks either. Until Beckman shows me something, he doesn't deserve to be above who I have on number 30. Sabo is up here because of two things: the narrative spotlight placed on him. I know I just said this list wasn't going to be based on narrative trajectory, but it's still going to play some factor, just not the biggest factor, and the possible Haki bloom that he could have gone after nearly dying to Imu. Sabo is going to be a pretty decent powerhouse by the end of the story, but I just don't see him being close to his end of series capabilities yet, so that places him in the honorable mentions for now. He is portrayed weaker than the admirals, as a casual Fuji is capable of holding him back, and he never actually fought any admirals on Marijua, so I think he doesn't break into the top 30 for now. Oden and Law have the best arguments for being over number 30, but with certain Haki hurdles the two haven't accomplished, and in all honesty the lack of comparable feats to number 30, it makes me not put them on the list. But I'm gonna be honest, I could easily place either of the two above number 30 and not be mad at it, because I do think they have a strong argument for being above, just not one I personally believe in. Gabon is someone I know you guys are all going to crucify me for, probably even more than Oden and Law, but I still haven't seen anything in God Valley to suggest that he should be over number 30, and his feats as an old man don't suggest superiority either. Prime Gabon is at best relative to Oden if we use the anime to give him a boost, but again, number 30 has everything Gabon already has and more. Just like with Beckman, him having relativity to Rayleigh does nothing for him as it concerns Roger, and Rayleigh already has portrayed superiority via being the right hand, so for now, Gabon is in the honorable mentions. But with the honorable mentions out of the way, the man who beat them all out is going to be Zoro. I was really contemplating putting Zoro in the honorable mentions just to upset Zoro fans, but at this point in the story, Zoro has done too much for me to be able to do that. Zoro has fought an insane catalog of characters, got an incredible boost to his armament and conquerors, and continues to shoot up higher and higher as he's obviously getting closer to the point where he's going to be dueling with Mihawk. Zoro's awakening of Conqueror's coding and utilization of it caused me to give him the edge over Oden, and I can't justify to myself personally him losing to a fight with Law when he was capable of doing more than Law was against Kaido and continued to grow further even after that point, getting Conqueror's coding and King of Hell. Zoro still has Ashura in his back pocket on top of everything he's already shown in the King fight, so with all of that I just don't see Gabon, Oden, or Law being able to keep up with him in a matchup. I don't think old Gabon is keeping up with King of Hell in a fight, and Prime Gabon probably takes Zoro to an extreme diff, but when it comes to battles, Zoro presses on until he accomplishes what he's able to do, and the gap between him and Gabon is so small in my eyes that that's something that he should be able to accomplish will be a win. Again, you can make arguments that are valid, I won't discount that, but I just don't see anyone in the honorable mentions being over Zoro currently. Right above Zoro and those in the honorable mentions, but still close to them in strength, is Rayleigh. I know you guys are going to see this list and go, why is this character so far away from this character? But the list is ordered based off who I think beats who in a fight. It's not a gap between every character that says the character at 7 is going to low diff the character at 15. Rayleigh, in my opinion, is going to have an extreme difficulty fight with everyone below him, even those in the honorable mentions. Rayleigh's portrayed over Oden and Gabon already, and by that logic is also over Zoro because I believe he's close to those two. Rayleigh's feats as an old man, while extremely impressive, are not far and away from what I think he'd be able to do in his prime. I don't think a prime Ray is beating Blackbeard or Kizaru in a fight, and I don't think a prime Ray is pressing Roger to an extreme diff either. Zoro is going to be surpassing Mihawk by the end of the story, which we are now very close to. Him being this close to Rayleigh is not crazy at all in my opinion, because he's going to gap Rayleigh hard in the next few arcs leading up to the end of the story. It's time we understand that the legends of the past are going to be surpassed by the main cast very soon here. I'm giving Rayleigh his respect by saying he could be over Zoro, but still, in all honesty, that might change by the end of Elbaf. When it comes to the Dark King currently versus the King of Hell, however, I think the Dark King still takes the edge at number 29. Now, number 28 is probably gonna make you want to turn this video off. I mean, if I was watching this, I'd probably be sick at this too, but hear me out. This is why y'all should be in the Discord, because the only argument I have to be made for why Wang Ji is over Rayleigh and Zoro is the one made there. The statement made in the chapter after the end of the God Valley segment of Loki's flashback states that the characters Shiki, Big Mom, Whitebeard, Roger, and Wang Ji fought for territory and rose in strength in the era after Rocks died. Wang Ji was defeated by a combo of Blackbeard, Law, and Kobe. I don't think Blackbeard used the Gura Gura because he wanted to keep Pirate Island intact, so he was nerfed to just the Yami Yami, but still, it's very impressive that Blackbeard didn't just steamroll Ji back then. Wang Ji is being placed on the same pedestal as those old legends and would have been an old man by the time Blackbeard put him down on Hachinosu. But despite that, however, I do not think Prime Ji is some Roger or Whitebeard level character, but probably close to the likes of Chen Zhao, simply due to the fact that he is stated to not be as well known as the other four legends of that era. However, Ji definitely does deserve his props, and in all honesty, I think he could possibly take it to an extreme diff with Rayleigh and slightly edge him out due to the fact that he was scrapping with his captain and the rivals of his captain back then. Another old era legend that you guys might crash out over is Chen Zhao. Yes, I do have Chen Zhao and Ji over Rayleigh, but remember I said that Rayleigh would push Roger to a high diff and that the gap between Ji and Rayleigh is an extreme diff fight. This obviously tracks for Chen Zhao as well. Chen Zhao is stated to have battled Roger and Garp, and while I don't think they were having death matches every time because characters in One Piece don't really fight like that unless it's a main cast fight or an actually important event like Rocks versus Garp and Roger, it is still impressive that he was fighting Roger and Garp and didn't get sent to the bottom of the ocean the first time, especially seeing as how this is after God Valley when Roger and Garp both have ACOG and have been using it for at least a decade by the point that Garp beats Chen Zhao. Garp versus Chen Zhao was not a one-shot. Garp overpowered Chen Zhao in a clash after specifically training to beat Chen Zhao in that type of clash, as he pulverized mountains so that he would be able to flatten Chen Zhao's head. Their battles more than likely didn't go like that clash the vast majority of the time, so it's not like Garp pulled a kaido on Chen Zhao and just bodied him low diff because he was actually struggling in that clash head on before he overpowered Chen Zhao. I think if he and Rayleigh were to clash in that exact same way, that's what's gonna be happening to Rayleigh too. The reason I keep bringing up Rayleigh is because I know people are going to try and glaze him to relative to guys like Roger, Big Mom, Shiki, Whitebeard, and Garp, but we need to acknowledge that while Ray is respectable, he's simply not built like that. I definitely see Chen Zhao beating him in a fight, but like I keep saying, it's going to be an extreme diff. Number 26 is Shamrock. Every point I made for Shamrock being in the top 10 is gonna be the same one I'm using here because we have no feats for him yet. He should be close to Shanks based off the statement of them at 24. He has an awakened mythical zone fruit sword. I have no idea how he awakened a double fruit with a sword because the will of the fruit has to catch up to the body of the person holding it, but I digress. And him being Shanks' twin, meaning he should have similar abilities to Shanks, possibly also meaning ACOG. Narratively, Shamrock should be this high, and I personally think he's up here as well. If you want to argue the point, go ahead. I have no feats to prove it, so take your easy win. At 25, I have Loki. Just like with Shamrock, there's no feats for him to say that he should be this high, but I think his portrayal alone takes him here. With all the Herald stuff, how legendary his ability should be, and the Elbaf mural, coupled with the fact that any feats we see from Loki on Elbaf will be him being nerfed as he was attacked by Shamrock while being unable to defend, would just upscale him further in my eyes. Again, I have no feats to argue with Spot, so take your easy win if you want it. This is another one I know you guys don't want to hear, and it's probably gonna be where some of you guys just tune out the video completely, but hear me out. Green Bull was caught completely off guard in the middle of a fight when Shanks hit him with his Conqueror's Haki. Something like that is never going to happen in the actual fight, and Green Bull deciding to leave afterwards doesn't make him look worse because Luffy and the Alliance is literally just up the mountain ready to fight too. In all honesty, what Shanks did to Green Bull is probably the exact same thing he did to Kaido to get him to turn back for Marineford. I just can't prove it. Green Bull took out Weevil, who is stated to have the strength similar to that of a young Whitebeard. I'm assuming this is going to be in reference to the Whitebeard in Law Valley minus the Gura Gura, because 1, an Admiral was sent after him, 2, Weevil is 35 years old and Whitebeard on God Valley is 36, 3, Weevil is going to be upscaled to the strength level of the current story by the time he showcases his power, and seeing as we have now seen some of God Valley Whitebeard's feats, logically the young Whitebeard would be that Whitebeard, and 4, it being Whitebeard at any point younger than that makes no real sense because we have nothing to compare it to. Essentially what this means for me is that in an actual fight, I think Green Bull is going to be clashing with Roger on God Valley the same way that Whitebeard was able to. I see Green Bull doing the exact same things that Whitebeard did against Domi Reverse Rocks, and everyone who that Whitebeard is portrayed to be stronger than on God Valley is who Green Bull is stronger than in my opinion, which is not ridiculous to say. We need to start putting some respect on the name of the new admirals. The Navy is stated to not have lost any strength between Akainu and Sengoku, and in fact got even stronger. The admirals, being the Navy's greatest power, cannot be weaker than the previous admirals and still be considered stronger. If Akainu and Aokiji got Haki blooms from their 10-day fight and Kizaru got a top tier matchup already, it makes sense that Green Bull and Fuji will upscale past or to the level of the admirals on Marineford, but still be weaker than Akainu and Aokiji, as they would be stronger than they were on Marineford. Green Bull, in my opinion, is beating everyone on the list below him, and now this is where the separation is going to start. I don't see Rayleigh, Zoro, Chinjao, or G beating Green Bull in a fight. I see it being maybe in an extreme diff matchup, but if they were gonna fight 100 battles, Green Bull is taking all 100. For the sake of respecting those below him, maybe they get the odd 6 or 10 fights because Green Bull's gonna be careless at some point, but I'm not gonna be doing this whole Green Bull is getting low diff by top tier characters nonsense, because you guys can't distinguish the fact that Shanks caught him off guard and is also an extremely powerful character. This is going to be a Luffy with the same level of stamina he showed in the Kaido fight. Gear 5, for some reason, when it was near death and fatigue, somehow had more stamina than it did when it was completely fresh on Egghead. Now this is either Kizaru upscale and thusly Admiral upscale because a nerf Kizaru was capable of doing more than Kaido was, or it's just Oda being inconsistent with how Gear 5 works for the sake of tension with Bonnie and Saturn, because Luffy was able to jump right back into Gear 5 after falling out of it against Kaido, and he was completely new to the ability but can't do that after White Star Gun despite being more experienced with using it. Either way, I have Luffy over Green Bull because I believe that if a 100 HP Gear 5 with the same stamina capability showcased against Kaido was to fight Green Bull, that Luffy would win. Even though I believe in an actual in-story fight, Luffy would probably use up Gear 5 before he can put Green Bull down for good. Kizaru was up quicker than Luffy was after White Star Gun and Egghead, so if that fight goes the same way with Green Bull, Luffy's gonna get murdered while he's still down, but if Luffy's capable of jumping right back into Gear 5 like he did against Kaido, then Green Bull is going to lose. Either way, Luffy's strength, speed, durability, and portrayal all place him above where Green Bull should be, even if I believe it's an extreme diff fight. Green Bull, despite needing some more respect from the community, is still the weakest admiral, and I believe Luffy has currently broken into the admiral/emperor tier and isn't some half emperor that still gets bodied in fights like some of you guys still seem to believe for some reason. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know why I have Kong over Luffy myself, but it just feels wrong to have someone who is fleet admiral below current Luffy. As a matter of fact, everyone above Kong on this list is now going to be considered characters with fleet admiral potential. Current Luffy I don't see being strong enough to be fleet admiral if he was to join the navy right now, same thing with Green Bull. So that's gonna be my reasoning for Kong being over Luffy. Kong might as well be a filler character at this point, because how are you of all people the fleet admiral? Keeping with the fleet admiral potential scaling, I have Prime Big Mom up next. You guys are gonna tell me that old Big Mom on Wano is Prime Big Mom. I searched for the scan myself because I was actually trying to use it to argue a point and I couldn't find it. I actually wanted to use that argument and I didn't see it, so now you guys don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. It made no sense for 68-year-old Big Mom to be her at her peak anyways. Big Mom is stated to be on the same pedestal as Whitebeard, Shiki, and Roger back in the day, and was someone who Roger didn't want to fight to the point he snuck into Whole Cake Island on some Brook activities to steal a rubbing of her poneglyph. Prime Big Mom is definitely someone I see being extremely powerful, but despite that I don't see her being necessarily equal to those like Whitebeard, Shiki, and Roger in terms of power, even with the same pedestal statement. If this was gonna be old Big Mom, I probably would have placed her at number 30 under Prime Ray, but I do think she was stronger back in Roger's era compared to where she is right now. Right above Big Mom, I have Kizaru. Kizaru and Egghead might as well have the same gap that Old Ray has between Prime Ray. Kizaru was not trying on Egghead in the slightest. You all can believe what you want to believe, but that man showed zero Haki usage on Egghead. You can tell me what Haki looks like, and then see if you see Kizaru doing that with Luffy on Egghead, because I guarantee you can't find it. Unless you want to use the invisible armament coding argument, which again, shows that he was not trying at all, as that is an inferior form of Haki to black armament Haki coding. Kizaru used absolutely zero bag on Egghead and was sandbagging the entire fight. It was capable of doing more to a fresh 100 HP Haki Bloom Luffy than Kaido was able to a just resurrected, about to die again, literally fell out of Gear 5 mid-fight Luffy. And I do not want to hear that Kaido was more tired than Luffy in that fight, because what you're telling me was that Yamato the Scabbards and base ACOG Luffy did more damage to Kaido than a hybrid murderous drunk Kaido was able to do to base ACOG and about to pass out of Gear 4 Luffy. The Admiral's disrespect needs to stop. It's either everyone is a fraud or no one is. You don't get to pick and choose based off how hype the character makes you feel or how good the animation Toei gives them is. Kizaru is at bare minimum relative to Kaido, which places him at the pinnacle of the verse. If Kizaru was a pirate, I easily see him getting the same treatment that Big Mom does, of being in the same pedestal as Roger, Whitebeard, and Shiki. There's a very clear reason Oda nerfed Kizaru on Egghead and showed him low diffing Snake Man Luffy. It's because he wants you all to know that if Kizaru was serious in this fight, Luffy is not making it off Egghead. In a fight between him and Prime Big Mom, I see Kizaru taking it 60% of the time, simply due to his speed and the fact that he has advanced armament Haki. ACOG is not an instant win condition. Big Mom having ACOG does not suddenly give her the ability to wax every character that doesn't have ACOG, because that's not how it works. fights. The reason I have Fuji over Kizaru is simply because I believe that one of the new admirals should surpass the admiral's bracket on Marineford, even if just slightly. For the navy to be considered stronger, someone in the admiral's tier had to upscale, and I don't think it was Green Bull. Fuji logically should be over Kizaru based off narrative upscale, as we've seen more from Kizaru than Fuji, and with Fujitora being stated to have a supreme grade blade and presumably creating its reputation on his own, it means he should be a formidable opponent in his own right. Possibly a future Zoro matchup, and also possibly a candidate for the end of series fleet admiral. I definitely give Fuji his props for being over Kizaru and Prime Big Mom. Again, I see him being in an extreme fight with both, but I think he has the edge slightly. Also, with his gravity powers allowing him to essentially slow down whoever he's fighting, and him more than likely possessing advanced observation Haki and advanced armament Haki, he definitely should be this high up logically. At number 18, I have Leech Goku. I mean Sengoku. Sengoku is supposed to be a powerhouse, he's supposed to be close to Prime Garp, he's supposed to be a lot of things, but I haven't seen any of that, so this is the highest that I can place him. Don't get me wrong, I definitely think Sengoku deserves respect, but feat-wise, he doesn't have anything. He's stated to have Conqueror's Haki even before Garp was, so logically for someone of his caliber, that means he has ACOG. All the admirals should have advanced Haki based off the fact that Garp and the OG3 have it. If we're acting like Garp isn't basically an admiral, we're just being obtuse for the sake of it, and with him possessing a Buddha Zoan and being a wise tactician just like the Buddha is, he's more than likely also awakened his fruit as well. Sengoku is essentially the Navy's potential man, because he could potentially be a lot of things and he could potentially have none of it. If he really matched the hype he was given by way of feats, he could even crack the top 10, but his leeching doesn't get him that far. I know you guys feel like I hate Kaido and just disrespect him to no end, but yeah, you guys would be right, but that doesn't mean I can't acknowledge that Kaido is still a strong fighter. To be honest with you, I think that Kaido has above a 40% chance of losing to everyone on this list above Luffy, but I do still have to place some respect on his name. He simply faced the same issues Crocodile did in Alabasta, which was being fought too early. That, or Oda just hyped him way too much for what he was going to be in Wano. I'm of the belief that Kaido should have never gotten any of the world's strongest creature statements, because if Oda planned for Luffy to beat him the way that he did the entire time, there is no reason why Luffy had to fight a nerfed Kizaru. The simple fact that Kizaru is who Luffy fought in Egghead, and that Kizaru wasn't trying at all just makes Kaido look even worse, because Kaido logically is performing the same way he did in the Gear 5 fight as he would against Luffy if they were both at 100 HP. However, I know how crazy it is to have Kaido below the top 20, because even though the power cliff is that steep, I'm not Mr. Stamina Man, and I don't have the patience to be arguing with y'all over days and days, because honestly, I don't care that much about Kaido anymore. It's been 2 arcs since Wano ended. If you can't see the cliff, you're just gonna have to fall off it. I'm going to clarify for you guys, since it seems that some of you guys think my characters who can beat Kaido video is the characters who are stronger than Kaido video. No, it's just characters who can beat Kaido in a fight. Being able to beat someone in a fight doesn't necessarily mean you're stronger than them, as relativity does exist in One Piece. One person may not win the fight every time or lose when they should be able to win. Moving past the world's strongest rumor man of this era, I now have to go to the world's strongest rumor man in history. Shiki is like Sengoku, except Shiki actually has evidence he can hang with the characters he's placed relative to. Except we've never actually seen a battle he's in full. He's capable of fighting Roger and was able to destroy half of Marineford while in a 2v1 with Garp and Sengoku, but I never saw what he was able to do in either of those fights, so I can't place him any higher. He should have ACOG, he should have advanced Haki, but I don't know. Shiki is someone I give more respect than Kaido, because Shiki was actually putting in work while he was around. If Shiki was the one going to Marineford, I don't think he would have turned back without fighting Shanks, because he didn't turn back when he faced Garp and Sengoku. Shiki is what Kaido wishes he could have been, which is a high-level smoke demon. Shiki has no problem pulling up on Roger, he has no issue pulling up on Whitebeard, and has no fear facing down Garp and Sengoku with no one to help him. His crew, based off what we see in Strong World, is literally just full of fodder, and his fleet shouldn't be full of impressive figures either, yet he was up there with the likes of Roger and Whitebeard, and is stated to be a rival to both. I give Shiki his props, even though he hasn't really shown us anything to say that he deserves it. Cracking the halfway point at number 15 is going to be Kuzan. Kuzan's arguments are again partially based off my top 10, but you'll notice this time around, instead of barely having Kuzan in the top 10, I have him above 3 of the characters that were on that list previously. I was tripping when I put Kuzan that low. The Shanks fans blinded me with Garling and Shamrock. I have no idea what I was thinking. Kuzan logically should be close to where Prime Garp should be off of Mentor upscale. If I'm not doing a good job of singing the praises of the characters on this list or reeling off their feats, it's because I expect you all to know how strong these characters are on their own, and this list is more of giving reasons why X characters stronger than Y character who's below them. I have Kuzan over Shiki, Kaido, and Sengoku because I believe that 1, Kuzan is fully capable of being Fleet Admiral, and 2, the fact that he fought Akainu for 10 days shows that the battle could have really gone either way. It only went the way it did because Akainu wanted it more than Aokiji did. Kuzan power clipped Kaido. Kaido is not beating him in a fight, and I don't care if you think Kuzan has ACOG or not. Like with Kizaru, I think Kuzan would also be considered in the same pedestal of Whitebeard, Roger, Prime Big Mom, and Shiki if he were to be a pirate back in the day, and I think he would logically slot into the strength bracket that Shiki did quite easily. Again, Again, this list is not gap based on placement, it's gap based off of who I think wins. Kuzan is 5 spots over Kizaru, but I think that they'd also have a close to 10-day fight if they were to be going at it for the Fleet Admiral title. It's just that I believe that Kuzan would win that fight more often than Kizaru would. I posted the list way back in my Discord to see if I was missing any characters, and you guys heated up when you saw Harold's placement. Let's be for real, Harold is not Rox's equal because they clashed and fought, for the same exact reason that Wang Ji is not Roger and Whitebeard's equal either, and neither is Big Mom or Qin Zhao. The battle between Rox and Harold was not some bloodlusted deathmatch. Neither wanted to fight the other, and I simply believe that Rox was holding back more than Harold was. You guys can tell me that I have no proof for that, or that it's unquantifiable, which yes to both of those, but to me it makes no sense that the world government literally just had a whipping boy as strong as Rox Xebec in their back pocket and didn't send them off to go crush the pirates who were rising up, especially Roger and Whitebeard. Harold just doesn't give me the vibe that he's up that high on the power ceiling, and him being over Kuzan still makes him pretty strong regardless, so I don't think it's that bad to have him at number 14. I was gonna put Dragon right below Sengoku and right above Fuji just for the fun of it, but then that ruins my Blackbeard upscale, so I have to have him here. Dragon logically should be strong enough to compete with a character like Aokiji and beat him, because there's no reason why the revolution hasn't been crushed already if Dragon isn't stronger than at least most of the admirals. Maybe that's the reason he spends his entire time hiding, because he knows he can't compete, but I digress. Again, like I say for the other featless characters, I have no way to defend him because he has no feats. Dragon logically should have ACOG, makes no sense why Luffy and Garp get it but he doesn't, and physically he should inherit something from Garp and pass it down to Luffy, since Luffy's physicality is always correlated to him being the son of Dragon by Ivankov and Marineford. Above Dragon is obviously Akainu. People who think Akainu hating Luffy is proof he's weaker than Dragon are just rage baiting, because that's never meant anything ever in the history of ever. Dragon literally spends his entire life hiding. If Akainu knew where Dragon was, he'd pull up to fight him. Luffy is just the next best thing, as he can't murder the hero of the Navy. Akainu logically should have Conqueror's Haki. I feel like the only reason Sengoku was given Conqueror's Haki confirmation was so that Akainu could then logically be assumed to have it as well once he became Fleet Admiral. He should have Devil Fruit Awakening, has the highest offensive out of anyone with a Devil Fruit, and narratively is at the top of the verse. People are starting to give Akainu his props more and more recently. I remember a time when people would say that Kaido would load if Akainu, and those times are slowly but surely changing. Either way, I don't think there's anyone below Akainu that you could make a legitimate argument for being stronger than him outside of maybe Harold if you want to glaze him equal to Xebec. Keeping it with the top 10 video, I have Shanks over Akainu again. I don't think it's crazy to have him this high up here. ACOG Future Sight definitely has advanced armament Haki, because why would he not? Sent Kaido running like a little girl. Although it was off guard, he had Greenbow hitting the stanky leg and sent him running. One Shot Kid, who although is a fraud and didn't even deserve to be in the honorable mentions, is still a pretty powerful character. It's basically the Roger of this generation and the freest man on the seas for the most part. The only arguments that you can make for Shanks and the only arguments that will be made for Shanks are that he should be higher, but for me, 11 is where he belongs. Remember when I said in my top 10 that if I didn't have to hold my tongue, I'd have Blackbeard at number 4 or number 3. I don't gotta hold my tongue anymore. If Shanks is the Roger of this era, Blackbeard is the Xebec / Whitebeard of this era. Isn't it funny how in both eras, the guys who Blackbeard gets his power from were both over Roger, who Shanks gets his moveset from? If Blackbeard was more powerful than Shanks was 15 years before the current story, there's absolutely zero reason why a Blackbeard with 2 Devil Fruits is somehow now getting diffed to the point where he needs another major power up to compete with Shanks in a fight. Blackbeard had Ace bent over on the ground, gasping for air in their battle. That was a 1v1, no one jumped in, that's not an argument. This is the same Ace who's portrayed relative to Yamato, by the way, the same Yamato that's injuring Kaido, by the way. Blackbeard was paying no mind to Luffy and impelled down, he takes extra pain, making him scream is not a feat. Magellan caught Blackbeard off guard, he literally puts him on life support the next time he sees him. Blackbeard was overconfident when he fought Whitebeard, 1 HP Whitebeard is still Whitebeard, and Blackbeard took a bloodlusted swing from a supreme grade blade and ate a bloodlusted quick shot to the face and was moving like he got to Marineford fresh right after that and was ready to square up with Garp and Sengoku 2v1, smack talking them. Blackbeard was most certainly not going all out on Wang Ji. He literally couldn't use half of his moveset because it makes no sense why he destroyed the island he's coming there to get with the Gura, and he probably wasn't even going all out with the Yami Yami either if we're being honest, because his fight with Ace on Monaro Island was engulfing the entire island, and again, it makes no sense why Blackbeard would destroy Hachinosu if he came there for Hachinosu. Blackbeard running from Ray is not the same as Dragon running from Blackbeard. Ray literally admits that he cannot hang with Blackbeard and states that it was his reputation that saved his ass. If Dragon is running from a man that was an emperor for 1 year because of his reputation, then I'm assuming he's going to be running from every battle he fights in the series going forward. It also makes perfect sense why Blackbeard just destroyed Baltigo for absolutely zero reason, because no one was there when he arrived apparently, even though he came there looking for something, so he just destroyed an entire empty island full of things he wanted. It also also makes complete sense that the hot-blooded Sabo, who's power tripping off of training with a new Logia, just runs away from Blackbeard when he was fully ready to fight Fujitora, Imu, and the Gorosei, and is shown to not follow orders and do his own thing. Law was bodied by Blackbeard off screen. If Shanks takes a shock willy, that attack is killing him. I don't care what you want to believe. An attack that is breaking Big Mom's ribs is having literally everyone on the list below Blackbeard spitting up blood, and Blackbeard rebounds from that hit instantly while also taking more damage due to the Yami Yami. He never jumped Law because he literally says to Augur that we finish what we start, and what he started with Law was a 1v1. Law is not Whitebeard. Blackbeard didn't jump Ace, there's no reason why he would jump Law, and if you read the story with your eyes, you'd realize that none of the Blackbeard pirates are jumping in to attack Law. By your guys' logic, Shanks had to jump Kid to beat him because his fleet was ready to fight, the Red Force was nearby, and Dory and Brogy sank their ship. Blackbeard is over Shanks. When they fight, it won't be because Blackbeard has some new ability. Hachinosu is right beside Elbaf, yet Shanks was going to pull up in Wano, thinking that Blackbeard was going to be there because his rat self knew that he was going to need Luffy or Kaido's self to beat him. Argue with the wall because Blackbeard is on top 10 of all time, is perfect positioning for him. Ruma is simply here because of Blackblade and Zorogas. I see Ruma being relative to Mihawk, if not slightly weaker, but I also don't see him being too far off from where a Prime Zoro would be personally. Depending on what it takes to create a Blackblade, Ruma could either be top 10 or not even make the top 30, since I'm essentially just placing him here off of what feels logical. He more than likely has ACOP because that seems like it's going to be part of what creating a Blackblade is, and he also very obviously has advanced armament, as even fodder swordsmen in Wano possess it. I have no real feat arguments, it's either he's here or he's lower. I can't justify him being any higher, so number 9 is where he belongs. Above Ruma is Garp. The reason I don't have Garp any higher is because I believe everyone above him edges him out due to weapons. Let's be for real, the fist gimmick is cool and all, but if I'm able to damage your Haki, the only thing stopping me from cutting straight through your fist is the fact that One Piece is a manga for young people. Being for real though, I think Garp could be higher on this list. He has definitely earned his spot in the top 10 because he has shown both the feats and portrayal necessary, but I just think that some other characters have a slight edge above him in those aspects. Mihawk is also another featless character, but statements supersede feats when those statements have not been contradicted. Mihawk is obviously over Shanks. Again, like I said before, do not look at the number gaps because just because Mihawk is 7 and Shanks is 11 doesn't mean I don't think a battle between them is anything less than a multi-day extreme diff fight. And since he's over Shanks, I think that puts him in the top bracket of characters in the old era. Mihawk should logically have Conqueror's Haki for the reasons I stated with Ruma, and I believe he should have the edge on Garp, not just in armament Haki but in observation as well, as those are the two types of Haki that his character just seems to be intertwined with for some reason. Again, I think it's a close fight between Garp and Mihawk, but Garp would get beaten more often than not. Whitebeard has an argument for being even stronger than Roger in all honesty, and the fact that he isn't a technical swordsman just upscales him over Mihawk, as him being stronger than any point Mihawk could have gotten his title isn't contradicted by the story. We all know how strong Whitebeard is. Him being this high isn't crazy. If you're going to be a clown and use him running from Garp as a reason why Garp should be over him, 1, that was a gag scene, and 2, that wasn't prime Whitebeard. Like, even if you want to make the argument that God Valley Garp isn't close to prime Garp, God Valley Whitebeard is further away from being prime Whitebeard than God Valley Garp is away from being prime Garp. And 3, Whitebeard being the world's strongest man puts him over Garp anyways. Breaking into the top 5 of all time now is Roger. The argument for Whitebeard being over Roger is simply that he was the strongest during Roger's era, but it's not as concrete as say Mihawk's title because it could also be due to his Devil Fruit being the most destructive power in the world. I'm gonna be honest, Roger just has more aura than Whitebeard. You're both active pirates, you're both growing in prominence, yet it's my era and not yours. The era statement in my eyes is greater than any title statement because if it's my era and you're active, then you obviously just aren't on my level. The era statement is an individual thing. Rocks ran the era despite Roger being a pirate longer than he was. Blackbeard runs the era despite there being pirates who are older and with more territory than he does. Roger being over Whitebeard is the logical thing for the story. Although being the pirate king isn't a strength thing, if it implies being the most superior pirate in the current era, then it should be based off what Roger was in the past. Just like Roger and Whitebeard, you can have an argument for Xebec being lower than Roger, but again, I just don't see it personally. I used to think that anyone who thought Roger was over Xebec was a fool, but I'll give you guys the fact that it's not as crazy for Roger to have surpassed Xebec now. But this is my list, and I have Xebec over Roger. Roger was inferior to Xebec the entire time that Xebec was an active pirate. Xebec had a subordinate honest crew that is at bare minimum only slightly weaker than Roger was, and Xebec is implied to be stronger than people who Roger has been having death matches with even in his own era. Xebec being this high would then upscale EOS Blackbeard, which is logically what's going to happen by the end of the story, as Blackbeard will be one of the strongest pirates in the story by the end. Now, this is a gap, and I'm not even talking immortality gap. Imu should logically gap everyone below him because his Conqueror's Haki showing in Gunko's body has slightly weaker range than both Harold and Roxas combined fighting on Elbaf. Imu for one has no reason to go all out with his Conqueror's Haki in Gunko's body because no one in the immediate area would even be a challenge for him. Second, he was just entering Gunko's body and that was just off the cuff. And third, I don't see why he would pull up to Elbaf and give Gunko his full power, since it's not like God Valley where he personally pulled up using Saturn. Even without his immortality gimmicks, Imu should be a decent bit stronger than the top pirates benefits are. The fact that he didn't kill Sabo and Cobra instantly with his attacks is just further proof why a character's showings don't always indicate how powerful they are, because Oda is wildly inconsistent with power scaling. Blackbeard. Davy Jones is someone I have over Emu because he was the former king of the world. Emu crashes out simply hearing his name, meaning it's more than likely that he has an inferiority complex concerning Jones, and because Jones is the final tier of Blackbeard upscale, I don't see Emu being stronger than Jones and still reacting the way he did to hearing his name, and personally, I don't see why Oda would introduce someone like Jones as not only the king of the world, but someone who was presumably the king of the world off his own merit, unlike Emu who needed help, and then end up making him weaker than Emu. Narratively, it makes no sense to me, so Jones is over Emu. You can try and make the argument that Emu was stronger than Jones, which sure, go ahead, but it just seems like a weird thing to want Emu to be stronger than Jones when he's reacting this way to him to the point where he pulled up personally to God Valley to prevent what he thought was the second coming of Davy Jones. Top one of all time is obviously Joy Boy. If you guys watch my candidates for the strongest of all time video, you'd know. It's harder to make an argument for Joy Boy not being top one than it is to make one for him being top one. He already has insane Haki feats, is essentially just a prime Luffy and 20v1 kings that Emu had to go into an equal alliance with, as even at the end of the war they were all still considered equals when they laid their swords down on the empty throne. If you guys are curious about where I'd rank the 20 kings, they'd range from anywhere between the weakest ones being on par with Fuji to the strongest ones being on par with Roger in my eyes. I did a poll on how badly I think a prime Luffy would dominate on God Valley, with one of the options being as bad as Emu did, which is what I think personally, because it's either Emu has been hitting the gym for 800 years in the flower room, which in my head makes no sense because he's literally the most arrogant character in One Piece and would literally never train with zero threats present, especially since he doesn't even take the threats that are currently present to him seriously, or he was always close to as powerful as he is right now, which upscales the 20 kings as Emu didn't just subjugate all of them and force them to fight for him. If the king punch is something that one of those 20 kings was capable of reeling off like regular hits, then it makes perfect sense why it took 20 characters of similar strength to take out Joy Boy. Joy Boy is very clearly him. Outside of maybe Davy Jones, depending on how close Oda will make Blackbeard and Luffy by the end of the story, I don't think there's any character who would even push him to a high diff, Emu included. Joy Boy would unironically one-shot or two-shot characters like Xebec, Roger, and Whitebeard, and Joy Boy should essentially be what Prime Luffy is. I think Prime Luffy and Joy Boy would go 51-49 in battles with Luffy being favored, but I don't see Luffy gapping Joy Boy in strength at any point by the end of the story. The reason I don't have Nika on this list is because I literally have zero things to scale Nika on besides the fact that Luffy and Joy Boy have his abilities. He could unironically be a known level character that was just spreading freedom ideology because I have zero information on how terrifying his era was. But that's going to be the list for right now. 30 of the strongest characters. For those of you who made it to the end, I'm assuming you either agree with the list, are incredibly open-minded, are studying my method so you can take me down effectively, or forgot to close the video when you decided to rage quit. If you guys want to argue with me about my top 30, again, the Discord is always open. We can always schedule a voice chat, and in all honesty, most of the voice chats that we have are usually just chill and usually end up with us discussing topics that weren't even what we came there for. So if that's your speed, we can run it whenever you want. Let me know what your guys' top 30 is in the comments below and what exactly it is that you disagree with from this video. Like I said at the start, thank you guys again for 2K. I wanted this video to come out by the end of the year for the 2K special, and I hit 2K way earlier than I thought I was going to, so it might have been a bit of a wait for this video, and I'm sorry if I made you guys wait too long. As always, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more high quality One Piece content. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.